In Washington tonight, democracy once again finds itself doing paperwork instead of governing people. A procedural fight over executive authority quietly signals how fragile institutional norms have become. The real story is not noise, but how power keeps slipping behind closed doors. Across the Atlantic, European leaders are holding emergency talks that feel rehearsed yet unresolved. Inflation, migration, and war continue colliding inside conference rooms full of cautious language. History, meanwhile, is not waiting for consensus to form. On Wall Street today, markets rose for reasons nobody fully trusts or explains. Investors are betting on optimism while bracing for corrections nobody wants to name. Confidence, once again, is being traded like a speculative asset. The White House insists economic indicators show progress, but voters feel something else entirely. Numbers look stable on charts, while grocery receipts tell a harsher story. That gap is where elections are quietly decided. In the Middle East, ceasefire language circulates faster than actual ceasefires on the ground. Diplomatic statements promise restraint, while military realities suggest preparation. Peace exists mostly in press briefings, not neighborhoods. Tonight at the Supreme Court, legal arguments hide ideological earthquakes beneath polite questioning. Decisions framed as technical will redraw social boundaries for decades. The courtroom remains the most powerful political arena in America. China's latest economic data suggests strength, but confidence appears carefully curated. State messaging emphasizes stability, while private indicators tell more complicated stories. Global markets are reading between officially approved lines. In Congress today, another bipartisan deal collapsed under the weight of partisan incentives. Everyone blamed everyone else, which conveniently solved nothing. Dysfunction has become the most reliable governing system. Ukraine's war enters another grinding phase where maps change slowly and costs rise quickly. Western support remains firm in words, complicated in logistics. Time itself has become a strategic weapon. Silicon Valley unveiled new artificial intelligence tools promising efficiency and innovation. What they did not promise is accountability, transparency, or restraint. Technology keeps advancing faster than regulation can spell its name. At the southern border, policy debates continue as human stories remain unresolved. Numbers dominate headlines, while individual lives vanish into statistics. This is what abstraction does to morality. Climate data released today shows trends scientists warned about years ago. Extreme weather is no longer an exception but an operational baseline. The surprise is not the data, but continued political hesitation. In Russia, elections approach with outcomes already politely understood. Participation is encouraged, competition is managed, and dissent remains expensive. Democracy here functions mostly as theater. The Federal Reserve signals patience, which markets interpret as reassurance and threat simultaneously. Interest rates hover like a loaded sentence waiting to finish itself. Monetary policy now speaks in subtext. Tonight, gun legislation resurfaces after another cycle of tragedy and familiar speeches. Momentum spikes briefly before fading into procedural fog. America remains stuck between outrage and inertia. In Latin America, protests erupt over economic reforms shaped by international lenders. Governments promise long-term benefits while citizens face immediate pain. A familiar development story repeats itself. The Pentagon releases strategic assessments that quietly redefine global threat priorities. Language shifts signal where future money and attention will flow. Budgets often reveal more than speeches. In the tech courtroom, antitrust cases test whether old laws can tame new monopolies. Innovation is celebrated, concentration is questioned, enforcement remains uncertain. Power, once accumulated, resists redistribution. Energy markets fluctuate as geopolitical tensions ripple through supply chains. Prices respond not only to oil, but to fear itself. Energy has always been political, now more transparently so. Tonight's immigration debate reveals how narratives overpower data in shaping public opinion. Facts exist, but feelings vote more reliably. Politicians understand this better than they admit. In Africa, elections highlight youth movements demanding economic inclusion and accountability. Demographics are shifting faster than political structures. The future is arriving without permission. American universities face funding battles tied to culture wars and donor politics. Education becomes another ideological battlefield. Knowledge, it turns out, is never neutral. Corporate earnings reports celebrate profit growth while quietly announcing layoffs. Efficiency is praised, workers are reduced, stocks are rewarded. This is modern capitalism explaining itself. NATO leaders reaffirm unity while privately debating long-term commitments. Alliance politics depends on both trust and shared fear. History suggests unity lasts only while threats feel immediate. Social media platforms announce new safety policies after regulatory pressure intensifies. Enforcement remains selective, transparency remains optional. Accountability is promised, rarely delivered. In Japan, demographic decline drives policy experimentation and cultural reflection. Fewer workers, more elderly, and urgent economic redesign define the moment. The future is quietly aging. Tonight's healthcare debate exposes America's ongoing struggle between cost, access, and ideology. Everyone agrees the system is broken. Disagreement starts immediately after. Complexity protects the status quo. Global shipping disruptions remind markets how fragile supply chains still are. Efficiency-optimized systems break easily under stress. Resilience, it seems, was never profitable enough. Political campaigns accelerate messaging while avoiding substantive policy clarity. Voters receive slogans instead of answers. Ambiguity is often a deliberate strategy. And finally, democracy itself continues operating under stress, distraction, and mistrust worldwide. Institutions hold but barely against pressure and fatigue. The question is not collapse, but endurance.